Hi, I'm Mitch Shoemaker, and today is day 26 of my doing 100 days of YouTube videos and focusing on my writing. So, yay, I made it to day 26. Um, and today has been kind of, I guess, an interesting day. I really don't know what to say about today. I kind of woke up today and I had this random image in my mind, and it was kind of just me sitting in a nice peaceful spot like a park of some kind, just with my head down and having something to eat and just not paying attention to anything going on around me, and realizing that like, there's black clouds, doom and gloom, a bunch of like forest prickly things, all the places around me, but I'm in this nice happy little green spot. So just whatever. I have no idea what that means. Maybe it's a weird dream, maybe it's a weird image. um, Kind of as I was going about my day, that just kept kind of playing in my mind, like, okay, this is just me, kind of oblivious to the rest of the world and the rest of everything else that's going around me, and maybe it was just my way of, I don't know, or maybe God's way of just telling me it was okay to just not focus on anything else today, not worry about anything else today, to just, relax and just be myself and not worry about anything today, because I didn't do anything today. Which I know is not good because I have bills to pay. I need to be working. I need to be doing like 1,000 things, and I just have no motivation. Like I was saying yesterday, I was just kind of frozen, stuck. It kind of carried over a little bit into today. And then I, um, I don't know, I was watching a movie today and I had this thought that just popped into my head. Um, and it was kind of a random thought, but it was a nice thought. It was a good thought. It was something that I think I needed. But it was like, emotions are strong, but I am stronger. And it just kind of makes me think of something I need to add to my my little vision board over there that I got, is that emotions are strong, but I am stronger, because a lot of times my emotions take over. My depression gets the better of me. Doesn't matter what I seem to be doing. It just always, I have those times where I'm just like, I can't seem to work past it or work through this, and I was like, I'm stronger than my emotions, really. That's good to know. I'm still giving into these and not doing anything today, but good to know. But then I started, getting anxious and thinking, okay, I got to do something. I got to do something. I got to do something. So I finally did open up my book. I started working on Illinois and the Teachers of Powers, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get through 11 through 14 or 12 through 14. Or did I stop at 11 last night? I did 3 chapters today, 4 chapters. I don't know. I finished chapter 14. I got all the way through 11, 12, 13, 14, or 12, 13, and 14. I think I did 9, 10, and 11 yesterday, so I did 12, 13, and 14 today. And then as I was reading, I just kind of was looking at my pictures of the Savior as I was going through this, and just looking at him like, love your sense of humor. Not really. Very sarcastic sometimes. I think God understands me. Um, Probably made me that way. But it was one of those things where it was like I was reading, and what was happening to my character, or what I was telling my character in the story, is what I needed to hear in my own personal life. And I was like, wow. So my park friend was right that I did put a lot of myself into my character without realizing it. And somehow, I give myself really good advice, or I write really profound things that jump out at me, and I'm like, I need that in my life right now today. And that's just kind of like God just knew that. He knew that I needed to read those pages, revise those chapters, so that I would read these things that I needed to do today. And so I'm going to read, spoiler alert again for anybody that's going to read my books and haven't, assuming I publish them at some point, which is the goal, the ultimate goal, right? And this isn't an exact quote from my book, but it's pretty much kind of a paraphrase, and it works with what's going on in my life, and it works for what goes on with the story. So kind of an interesting parallel thing, a learning thing. And I'm like, great, this is just a random story I made up, and yet I'm learning from my own story. So hopefully that means that people, when they read my book, will actually learn some things too, and not just, have entertainment. because I like stories that teach lessons or morals, and I like TV shows that do that too. So it's kind of cool that I was unintentionally doing that in my story. So anyway, if I can read this, I'm not very good. I'm kind of blind. So here we go. I just put blessings. So it's a blessing, not a punishment, an opportunity, not torture. And then lessons are to teach, not hinder your progress. And the more you learn, the more freedom you will have. The more you fight, the more restricted you will become. And I really don't like crying. I really appreciated that tonight. It really just kind of struck me as I was reading that, because it was that reminder that all of these lessons, all of these things that I'm going through are blessings. They're opportunities. I am not being tortured, even if it feels like torture to go through this. It's not torture. It's a blessing. It's an opportunity. And the more that I fight it, the more restricted I feel, the more frozen I feel, the less I'm able to do. And the more I'm willing to learn, the more I'm willing to grow, the more freedom I have, the more capacity I have to do things, the more strength that I can gain by doing all of these things. So it's one of those things where I'm just like, yay, that's cool. This is good to know. This is why I should stop fighting. And then, of course, I was just kind of glancing at my pictures of the Savior and just thinking, and I'm still going to keep fighting. And then I had the thought that I'm just fighting the wrong battles. I'm like, I have a warrior spirit maybe in me, my stubborn, crazy part of me somewhere, but I'm fighting the wrong battles. I'm fighting myself. I'm fighting God. I'm fighting progress. So what? I can stay in some dark, lonely place. So I can stay with what's familiar. So I don't have to change. Except that I don't really like where I'm at. I like the changes that I'm making, and I know it's a process. And I know when I was reading my scriptures and meditationals, and writing about it afterwards today, I was just thinking about the process, and that I'm in the middle of this process, and I'm in the middle of making all of these changes. And there was something else I didn't write down from my book that just popped into my head that goes along with all of this. And it's that the powers, like my character's powers, I guess, it kind of, again, spoiler alert, but basically all of the stuff that she's being surrounded by, all of the new things are enhancing her powers, enhancing her abilities, but it's happening so quickly that she doesn't understand all the changes that are happening, and it's starting to control her, and she's freaking out. And I'm like looking at my own life and all of the changes that I am in the process of making, and I'm struggling to keep up with everything that I'm trying to do. And I watched Iron Will today. I don't know if any of you have ever seen that movie, but he's running this race, and he's completely exhausted and worn out, and everybody's there cheering him on, and he falls down, but he still gets up at the end. And I was looking at that and going, okay, that's kind of like, I wish I was just running a race and there was like an end to the end of all of the stuff that I'm doing. And maybe there is an end. I mean, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way up. There is a way out. There's hope. I know all of those things. But it's a lot of work. It's very intense. And it's not like it's just one race. And it's just like, okay, if I can just get to this point, then I'm done. Because it's like, okay, then I'm done with that one thing and I get to move on to the next, because I did my 100 days of gratitude, and I was like, yay, I did 100 days of gratitude videos, and now I'm doing 100 days of writing, and I'm still focusing on things to be grateful for, and then I get to add something else. So it's not like I get to stop growing, stop progressing, stop learning, but like I wrote, the more that I learn, the more freedoms that I gain, the more strength that I have, the more capacity I have to continue to learn and to grow and to go through things. And it is a process. It's a learning process. It's a growing process. It's it's also kind of exciting and good for me to see that I wrote something that sticks out to me, that's helping me. And I'm like, I don't even remember when I wrote that, or what I was going through when I wrote that, or even if I was going through anything hard at the time that I wrote it. So it's interesting that God has given me these words and allowed me to put them in a book that I can share with other people, and that actually, come back to me and be like, I'm struggling with this. I can relate to this. I can relate to my own character, which I guess is good, because I'm writing my characters, I guess, not realizing. Some of them I know I'm writing based off of myself, but I didn't feel like I was writing this character based off of me. So I was surprised when my park friend said she could see me in it, and I was like, yeah, I guess you kind of can. And then tonight I was like, yeah, I could totally see myself in this character. How interesting. That wasn't my intention at all when I wrote it, but I guess who I am just comes out in what I do. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I like my character, and maybe that's part of the reason it bothers me that my friend that moved away, the one that's doing my book cover, doesn't like my character, because it's kind of like a reflection of me. And I have to remember that it's just a reflection. It's not actually who I am, and the character wasn't necessarily meant to be based off of me. It's just something that I did, something that I'm proud of. And not everybody's going to like it. And I know it's not perfect, and I'm going through and making revisions, but I don't think it's going to make my friend like my book or my character. And that's okay. She's allowed to have her opinions and have her ideas, and everybody's going to come to my stories or read my stories with their own perspectives and backgrounds. And that's what we do as people and individuals. We approach relationships, we approach life based on our own personal experiences. And sometimes it's hard to put those experiences aside and trust that there can be something different and something better. And I think sometimes for me, I feel that way, and I forget that I can have something different and something better. And I see it in other people's lives, and I get envious and I get jealous, and I'm like, I want that. But it means I have to change if I want that. It means I have to be vulnerable. It means I have to open myself up to new opportunities, to new ways of thinking, to seeing things in a different light, to believing that I can have something different, and it's not always going to be the same. And I don't have to accept the same behaviors and the same mistreatment and things that I grew up with, and I don't have to treat myself that way. So I'm hoping that as I'm learning to treat myself better, I was writing about that today after I read my scriptures and meditationals, that as I learn to treat myself better, as I have more love and compassion towards myself, I feel like it gives me more love and compassion towards other people. And it really reminds me of that scripture that's saying, love one another as you love yourself. But how can you love thy neighbor as thyself? Or how can you love others as yourself? If you don't love yourself, how much are you really loving somebody else? And, growing up, always being told to give service and give of myself to other people, I'm like, I didn't even know who I was. And I was giving up whoever I was to make everybody else happy. And nobody ended up happy, myself included. And now I'm doing all of these things to discover who I am, to be happy with who I am, to have a better relationship with my Savior, to be grateful for the life that I've been given, to discover my purpose, my divine purpose, my goals, my dreams, to use the gifts and talents that I have as a writer, obviously. I mean, I'm reading the stuff that I wrote, and I'm like, wow, I wrote that, and it's actually applicable to my own life. It's coming back at me, and my own words are coming back to haunt me. They're good words. They're going to help me. They're actually helping me to move forward in my life, and hopefully they will do the same for someone else when I get my books published. And I am just in awe that I could write something that would come back to help me, and hopefully that means it will help other people. And then it makes me think, as I do these videos, that maybe they're actually there to help other people. That something I'm saying will resonate with you, that will be like, oh, I need that in my life too. Thank you for sharing. And sharing can be healing as well. So it's it's amazing, these gifts that I have been given, and I'm grateful to discover them. I'm grateful to be learning how to use them, and I know I'm not doing it perfectly, and it takes time to develop talents. And these are talents that I've probably had and used off and on throughout my life, and just taken them for granted, or just been afraid to use them because I got made fun of, or because I didn't feel like I was good enough, for whatever reasons that were out there. And by doing my gratitude list, by working on my books now, I can see that I have talent. I can start believing in myself. And as I do that, I feel more confident, I feel better. And then I want to have more compassion for myself. And then I want to have more compassion for other people. I want to be like some of my friends. I want to be a better friend. I want to be a better person. I want to be more understanding of other people. I want to be less judgmental and less critical. In order to be less judgmental and critical of other people, I have to stop being judgmental and critical of myself. And it's like, wow, the better I treat myself, the better I want to treat other people. And it seems like so the opposite of what I was taught growing up, because the focus is always on other people and how to take care of other people and how to treat other people, and then judging other people for being stupid and judging other people for the way they dressed, and judging other people for their imperfections, judging myself for not being good enough and living up to other people that were supposedly perfect on the outside and no idea what was going on the inside, didn't care what was going on the inside, only the outside mattered. And not that anyone said that to me, like not specifically like that. I mean, all the words that I was taught were probably the opposite of that. Like, always get to know someone on the inside, not the outside. It's the inner beauty that counts. I mean, all of those things. But it's what I heard, the judgments that I heard, from other people. Like my grandma saying that person forgot to put her clothes on or something, didn't get dressed because weren't dressed modestly. According to our church standards, not according to whatever they believe or were taught or grew up with or whatever. My mom watching beauty pageants and being judgmental of that. My aunt, my cousin singing in church and then saying, oh, I missed a note. And my aunt going, oh, yeah, I totally noticed it. I'm like, you got a little emotional while you were singing, and it just added and enhanced to how amazing the song was and how good you sang. And all you noticed was the one note you missed. And my aunt's like, oh, yeah, I totally noticed that too. And I'm like, I don't know if she actually noticed that or not, but that's not very uplifting, supportive, whatever. But I was like, that's what I grew up with. That's what I was surrounded with. That was, and of course it was my job to make everybody else happy. And I was supposed to just be happy. And so there you go. I wasn't allowed to do anything else. Nobody else wants to do what I want to do, so I don't get to do it. Everybody else is doing it, so I get to do it, whether I want to or not. That's, and so it's been an interesting adventure to try to discover who I am, to try to decide if I like who I am. And I think for the most part I do. I get a little frustrated with myself because I have those old negative habits, ideas, thoughts that keep creeping in. And I was like, dang it, I got to focus more on my gratitude again because these negative attitudes are taking over. And I'm grateful for little things that pop into my head, that my emotions are strong, but I'm stronger. And I'm grateful that I finally chose to work on my book and to read these things that encouraged me to work through it and to remember that I'm not being punished. I'm not being tortured. That these are blessings. These are opportunities to change and to grow. And that maybe right now I've just been growing, surrounding myself with a lot of good things and making a lot of changes. And maybe I just needed to take a few days off to catch up to all of the emotions and all of the things that are going on, to just breathe for a minute because I'm just exhausted from all of it. But I mean, I feel good and I feel happy. So I'm not beating myself up, but I'm not criticizing myself, which I'm really grateful for. And then somehow, after doing those 3 chapters and reading those things, I opened up my book that I've titled Recognizing God's Hand in My Life, and I looked up the word preface for the first chapter of my book to call it a preface. I'm still debating whether or not I want to call it a preface, because I read what a preface is supposed to be. I read what an introduction is supposed to be, and I was like, okay, I've got, one or the other that it can be. And then there's a foreword, but a foreword somebody else writes, so it's definitely not a foreword for my book. But I kind of want it to be the first chapter because I want people to actually read it. And an introduction people actually read, but my preface isn't really an introduction, I don't think. I think it matches the definition of a preface, except that it's really long because it's like 4 pages or 3 pages or something, and they're only supposed to be 1 to 2 pages long, because if they're too long, then people won't read them, because apparently a preface is something you put probably after the title, after the index. Oh, I can't think of what it's called, where it gives you just a list of all the chapters and the title chapters and whatever. Anyway, but it's still the Roman numerals numbers instead of the like regular numbers for the book. So I'm going to wait when I send it out to beta readers and people and be like, should I list this as a preface or should I list it as chapter 1? Because it's going in the front of the book no matter what. So it just doesn't matter if it's going to be the preface or chapter 1. But apparently from what I read, there's a possibility that if I put it as a preface, that people may choose to skip the preface and go straight to chapter 1, which I guess would work if they jump straight into chapter 1. But I kind of think that the preface is necessary, which I don't know. Anyway, I can either make it a chapter and just call it a brief summary, or I can, and maybe I'll just do that. I'll just make a chapter 1 and a brief summary and just be like, yeah, it could be either one at this point. Because I don't really want to call it an introduction. That just seems weird. But then it would still be a chapter. So it is a chapter and it's titled a brief summary. So it's either a preface that's a brief summary or a chapter. And I don't know. Right now I changed it to preface, but I can always change it back to chapter 1. So it's kind of not something that's important at the moment for my book. It was just a nice distraction because, as you can see, I like avoiding doing things that make me uncomfortable and are outside of my comfort zone. And right now, I have been doing a lot of things outside of my comfort zone. A lot of things outside of my comfort zone. I have been working extra hard. I have been stressing. I have been putting in a lot of emotional effort and time into my writing, because writing isn't just like working on my books, isn't just sitting down and writing something, even though I have all the story ideas. It's emotional, it's draining, it's time consuming, it's like a job in and of itself. And depending on what I'm writing depends on what emotions come up, and then how to process those emotions, put them into the story, make them make sense, and not get too caught up in the emotion. Because if I get too caught up in the emotion, then I'm just writing the emotion and I'm not actually writing the story. And then I have to go back and read it again and try to control the emotions while I make it make sense. So multiple times through a book, and I really don't want to go multiple times through my book of recognizing God's hand in my life. But I did actually go to that chapter, and whatever I was reading, I don't know how it got there, but it seemed like it should be at the end of my book. And I was like, this belongs at the end and not at the beginning of my book. I don't know where this came from. So then I had to scroll through a few chapters to find the stuff that I wanted for my second or third chapter, the one that's called Death is Not the End, and talking about my grandpa. And I found it, parts of it. And then I was amazed at how, I did get emotional. I did do some crying, but I was amazed at how easy it was to just type it all up. And I was surprised. I was like, that is not as hard as I thought it was going to be. Like, I made it so hard, and yet it just felt so freeing. Just like I wrote that, like, stop fighting and is freeing. So learning is freeing, going through the process is freeing, and fighting just ties me up in knots and chains and makes me frozen and I can't do things. So even knowing that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to make that a change every time I get frozen and be like, all right, what am I avoiding? Let's face it, because I don't really want to. I don't know that part of me is ever going to change and ever going to be like, all right, let's just jump into the deep end and go for it, because I mean, I know how to swim. I know I can do it. I've done it before. But somehow that just doesn't seem to get easier for me. It doesn't seem to matter how many times I have to do this. That process does not get easier for me. But I am grateful to know that the process works. And I am grateful to know that it is working in my life. I'm grateful to know that God is working in my life. And that He is giving me what I need to break through those barriers, to feel like I'm unfrozen, to feel like I can continue to move forward, that I can still do things, even though I kind of just sat in my own little world today, oblivious of everything else that's going on around me, not caring about anything, just like I imagined when I got out of bed today, and just was like, I'm just not going to care today. And that's probably not the best thing in the world to do, but I am grateful that I did work on my books. I'm grateful for things that just kind of resonated with me and reminded me of things I need to be doing in my life, and grateful to know that somehow God gave me the gift or the inspiration to write those things in the first place so they could come back and help me later. And just so I so did not expect that, to have my own writing come back and give me the answers of something that I needed or something that I was struggling with. And that as I did those chapters that I felt impressed to do with Manoia, that it gave me the courage to face the chapters I needed to, in recognizing God's hand in my life and realizing that it wasn't as difficult as I made it out to be or anticipated that it would be. I think I over anticipated how difficult it was going to be to face those feelings, so I just chose not to do it. And then when I did it, it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was. And I'm not really sure I'm 100% okay with the end of the chapter. I think I kind of just repeated myself in a couple of different ways. So I probably need to go back and take something out or rephrase something. But I may look at it again tomorrow, or I may just leave that alone for now and let someone else tell me when they do the beta reading going, fix this. But I mean, one little paragraph or, couple paragraphs at the end of a chapter versus the entire book to fix is not something horrendous. And if it's still as good as the first couple chapters that my mentor read and said she wished her rough drafts were that good, then I'm good, because the first draft of that book, it's like I said, it's a tangled mess. It's all out of order and it does not make any semblance of sense. I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote this. I mean, I do. I was thinking I just wanted to get down everything that I was thinking, everything that I was feeling, everything that I was remembering. And I just wanted to get it out of my system as quickly as possible so I didn't have to think about it anymore. And then I did not want to look at it, and I haven't for probably over a month. And so going back through it is still difficult, but it's not as difficult as it was when I wrote it the first time. And it actually kind of feels good to freeing a little bit to just be like, okay, I am done with that chapter for now. And then I get to do that with the other chapters. And then I get to send it back out to people and saying, okay, I rewrote this, so it shouldn't be as difficult to read it. If you can give me some suggestions on how to fix it, I would appreciate it. And then, of course, the process of waiting and bugging people so I can get it back so that I can go through it again, which I don't like to do. And then hopefully that will be easy enough to fill in the blanks, and then I can get it edited and published. That's the idea. That is the goal. Would be nice to have it for Christmas, but not going to hold my breath for that, because what are we, 1-2 weeks away from Thanksgiving, and I haven't even finished writing or rewriting the first the first round of this book. So same with the other one. Well, I mean, Manoia is actually, I got responses back from beta readers, and it's going to be revised. I'm already to chapter 14. Like I finished chapter 14, so I'm on chapter 15, and I think if I remember correctly, chapter 17 is where I need to start making some changes. Although I did notice some things tonight in what I was reading that may or may not necessarily make sense. So I might need to go back and add some kind of commentations to previous chapters to kind of make it make a little bit more sense. Because I have a character that's acting very superstitious and kind of afraid of the powers, the people with powers in the book. But I haven't really explained that yet. I've just kind of left it sort of hanging there, like kind of there, but the explanation is coming, but it's coming more towards the end of the book. So I don't know if it's okay to just leave it hanging there, to just kind of leave it the way that it is, or if I should try to explain it beforehand, like just some little comments or something in between. Maybe I'll just leave it the way that it is. That it is. I'm talking like I'm writing my book and I get carried away writing and I leave out just random words. And the funny thing is my friend that did the beta reading, I was going back through her stuff and I just leave out little words. She's like, oh, left out this word, this word, this word. And I'd read over it. And it's like, my mind automatically sticks that word in that's missing. And I don't realize that it's missing because I'm just so into my book. I just gloss right over the missing word. My mind just fills in the blanks, which is cool. Except that obviously it filled in the blanks when I was typing it too, because I didn't type the word either. So then I was like, I'm grateful somebody pointed that out to me. But also a lot of that stuff, I'm like, this just comes out in editing. This just comes out in editing. And of course, there was one thing where she was like, what does this mean? And I was like, okay, I don't. Sometimes I look at stuff and I'm like, this totally makes sense to me. And I don't know how to make it any more clear than it already is. Because to me, I'm looking at it like, it's in black and white. It's right there. I just wrote it. I'm like, all right, I'll try to figure out another way to make it more obvious why this person is freaking out. But okay. But then again, there was another sentence today that my friend made some comment like, I don't understand what this is. And I read it and I was like, I don't understand what that is either. So that sentence is gone or rewritten or revised or whatever it needs to be. Because like I said, sometimes I don't make sense to myself. And sometimes obviously things that seem obvious to me aren't obvious to other people. So I need to figure out how to make it more obvious, state more of the obvious, which is kind of feels redundant to me to do that. But maybe it doesn't feel redundant to the person reading it. Maybe it doesn't make total sense to the person reading it because they're not inside my head. So that is the whole point of beta readers, to point out the stuff that is not inside my head, or to ask me the questions that are inside my head, or questions of things that I'm like, I don't know, I never thought about that. I don't know, I didn't care about that. All right, I guess I can add that to the story. I can make something up. No big deal. Like, I don't know. So, but I'm grateful for the questions because it gives me insight into what's missing in my book or what's missing in my writing, and it helps me to be a better writer, a better person. And I'm grateful that instead of beating myself up and feeling like I failed because my writing isn't up to par or because someone didn't understand what I think is obvious, that I can look at it again, that I can try to add something or change something and be like, okay, this makes sense to me, but obviously doesn't make sense to this person. So I can change it. I can make it more obvious to what's going on. I can add the extra little detail in there that I didn't realize I left out, or that I didn't think was necessary or important, but apparently it is to other people. So, I mean, it's a couple of sentences, a couple of words added to a sentence, and it just makes it more sense, I guess, to other people. Makes more sense to other people. There we go. Makes it more sense. It don't make any sense, but I'm grateful I can do that and be okay with that, and know that it's not changing. It's not changing me. It's not changing my story. It's just making my story. Making people understand my story better, I guess. It's making my story better. It's adding to the story to make it fuller, to make it more understandable, more comprehensible to people, to keep people attached to the story instead of detached. Because I know that there's sometimes you're reading a story, or I'm reading a story, and then the author says something or writes something, and it takes you out of the story because it doesn't fit with whatever else is in there. And it's never good to write something that doesn't fit, because it distracts the reader, and then it's like, then they want to put the book down, or then they don't like the book anymore, or then they're confused, or they're like, where does this come into play? And they either start flipping back behind to where they were at, or like me, trying to flip to the forward to try to figure out how this makes sense somehow. So, and like I said, some of the things in my book will be explained later, further into the book, so you have to read the whole thing for the explanations. And some of it I've gone through and added explanations for it or to it or whatever. So, and some of it I haven't actually added yet. It's just stuff that I was thinking about doing, and I was thinking of doing it in a prologue for my book, but I really don't want to write a prologue. And so if I can find a way to incorporate it into the story, but it doesn't go in the story until later, like chapter 17. So chapter 17, 18, and there's only 22 chapters. So the last, what is that, 5, 6 chapters of the book will need some major rewriting to add the extra details and conversations that I have pictured in my head. And part of me wants to just jump to that part of the story so I can write it and be finished. But I don't want to skip the rest of the stuff that needs revisions, because I've noticed as I'm reading through and as I'm getting comments from my one friend that beta reading friend swap, whatever. Anyway, as I'm reading through some of those comments, it's like, oh, I did leave out this detail. I did leave out that detail. And even as I'm reading it myself, I'm like, oh, I missed this, or oh, this makes more sense here, or oh, I can change this because it goes with the rest of this. So I did that. I'm like, oh, I got to some part and I'm like, oh, this would make more sense if I do this or whatever, because of some other detail that I've added. So it's got me thinking about more details. It's got me thinking about ways to improve my story. So I'm grateful that instead of being that person I used to be that would be upset or feel like everyone was being critical and I would just shut down and not do anything for weeks or months or years on my book, and then I would pick it up again because I just can't leave it alone, that now I'm just like, I'm barreling through it. I'm taking those, not criticisms, I'm taking those comments, those ideas as a way to improve my book, a way to improve my writing, a way to improve myself. And I like having a direction to go in and be like, okay, this is what I need to work on. Okay, I can do that. That's cool. This is what I need to fix. Okay, cool. This is what doesn't make sense. Okay, cool. I love that. I appreciate that. But if I don't get people that are willing to give me those comments or those criticisms or whatever you want to call them, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to fix. So I'm grateful that I'm not seeing it as a harsh thing, that I'm seeing it as a helpful thing and as learning, as a lesson that this is not torture. I am not being punished. I think a lot of times I have felt that way in my life, where I'm being punished for something I didn't do. And my character does that a lot in her book. And I'm like, dang, I really did write myself into this character and I didn't mean to. But I'm grateful that I can see a little bit of those similarities. I'm grateful that I can learn from my own writing. And I'm grateful that it got me to work on my book, recognizing God's hand in my life. And I'm grateful that was not as scary as I thought it was going to be. And it was actually kind of a relief and freeing. And I'm hoping that means that I will have loosened enough, knocked off enough, bricks or whatever, walls in my life. And that maybe I've had enough time to breathe and catch up with everything that I can start building some more, taking on some more things to change, some more things to work on, some more things to do, getting back into a rhythm or a schedule, trying to get a rhythm or a schedule going. Actually, that's the other part of my problem, is I don't have a regular schedule and I'm not getting enough regular sleep. And then I get way too exhausted and way too emotional, and I just don't think clearly when I do that. So I think maybe I just needed the time to stop and breathe and to just clear my mind of things and not care for a little bit, because it allowed me to be open to things again today and willing to move forward again today. So I am grateful for that. And I'm grateful that God knows me well enough to know what I need and to help me to just be okay with that and to not beat myself up for it, which is just, it's amazing to me to not beat myself up for things. And I appreciate it. I'm grateful for it. I love that. That I can do that now, that I don't have to beat myself up, that I can not necessarily justify. I don't even feel like I have to justify my actions. I can just say, hey, this is how I'm feeling today, and this is what I chose to do today, and I will suffer whatever the consequences are because that was my choice today. And I'm okay with that, which is amazing to me, because honestly, I was not have been okay with that when I started my 100 days of gratitude. What was that, 126 days ago? I would not have been okay with that. So what is that, like 4 months ago? Like, seriously, I would not have been okay with this. And in 4 months, I am totally okay with my decision today. I'm like, maybe it's not the best decision. Maybe I could have made better choices today, but this is what I chose to do today, and I will deal with it. And I am grateful I got to relax for a little bit. I am grateful that I worked on my book. I'm grateful I got to learn a lot of things. I'm grateful that I'm starting to find things to be grateful for again, because I know I was praying today that I was just having a really bad attitude and just really not wanting to do anything today. And I was like wishing God would just make me do it. And of course, I always get that thought every time I say that. I'm like, I'm never going to make you do anything. It's like, you have your free agency. I'm not going to make you do it. And I'm like, all right, well, just please improve my attitude. Please help me to be willing at some point to do something today. And it took most of the day before I was willing to do something, but I feel like it was very productive when I did decide to do it, and I was grateful for doing it. And I'm also grateful that I just waited until I was ready to do it, because I think maybe I needed to for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't understand myself. But I know that God understands me and that He loves me and He's going to help me through all of this, and that everything is going to work out one way or the other. And maybe not the way that I wanted it to, or maybe not in the way I want it to. But, you know, consequences of my choices, good and bad. But I do feel lighter tonight after having done the work on my books. And I'm grateful I was able to work on both of my books tonight. And I'm grateful I'm able to make this video. And I feel like I'm repeating myself and I'm rambling, so you guys are probably all sick of hearing from me tonight. But if you like, you can hit like, subscribe, share with someone else if you think it'll help them too. And I hope you have a great night full of gratitude.